A study out of the University of Utah tracked 400 men between the ages of 55 and 75 who believed they were eating a healthy diet. Fruits every day, clean eating, the whole picture. What the researchers found stopped me cold when I first read it. A significant portion of these men were unknowingly consuming fruits that were suppressing their testosterone. Not processed food, not alcohol, fruit. And several of them had testosterone levels low enough to explain every symptom they'd been struggling with for years. I'm Dr. Jocelyn Carter, a board-certified urologist with over 12 years in clinical practice. I've spent a lot of that time correcting the misinformation men over 60 receive about testosterone and diet. Today, I want to give you what the clinical evidence actually says, not what the internet says, not what a friend told you, but what the research shows. And what the research shows about fruit and testosterone is going to change the way you look at your grocery list. Before we go further, drop a comment right now and tell me what you've heard about fruit and testosterone. I want to know what's circulating out there because the misinformation on this specific topic is some of the most widespread I've seen in men's health. Here's what you've probably been told. Eat more fruit. It's natural, it's healthy, it's good for you. And in many ways, that's true. But here's what's wrong with that advice when it comes to testosterone specifically. Not all fruits interact with your endocrine system the same way. Some fruits actively support testosterone biosynthesis. Others contain compounds, phytoestrogens, fructose loads, enzyme inhibitors that measurably interfere with androgen production. And when you're already dealing with the natural testosterone decline that begins in your early 40s and accelerates after 50, the fruits you choose are not a minor detail. They are a clinical variable. Here's what's actually happening in your body. After 50, your Leydig cells, the testosterone-producing cells in your testes, become less efficient. Your hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, which regulates how much testosterone your body signals for, begins responding more slowly. At the same time, aromatase activity, the enzyme that converts testosterone into estrogen, tends to increase with body fat and age. This means you're producing less testosterone at the source and losing more of it to conversion. Any dietary compound that either raises estrogen, suppresses the HPG axis, or increases aromatase activity is going to make this picture worse. And several common fruits do exactly that. Let's start with what you need to stop eating, or at least dramatically reduce. Number 4 on the list of fruits that destroy testosterone: canned or heavily processed fruit in syrup. I know this seems obvious, but hear me out, because the mechanism goes deeper than most people realize. A 2019 study from Tufts University followed 362 men over 18 months and found that men with the highest daily fructose intake, particularly from processed fruit products, showed a statistically significant reduction in free testosterone compared to men with the lowest fructose consumption. The sample size was 362 men, ages 48 to 71, and the duration was 18 months. Here's the mechanism in plain language. Excess fructose drives insulin resistance. Insulin resistance increases cortisol. Elevated cortisol directly suppresses the HPG axis, the system that signals your body to produce testosterone. It's a biological chain reaction, and canned fruit in heavy syrup sits right at the beginning of it. That said, I want to be precise. Whole fruit fructose, delivered with fiber, behaves very differently in the body than the fructose load in processed fruit products. The fiber slows absorption, blunts the insulin spike, and prevents that cortisol cascade. The clinical problem is specifically with processed, high-sugar fruit products, not whole fruit consumed in moderation. If it came from a can with syrup, put it down. Number 3 on the list of fruits that destroy testosterone: licorice root and licorice-derived products. Now, some of you may not think of licorice as a fruit, but licorice root is botanically a legume with fruit-like properties, and it shows up in health food stores marketed as a natural remedy. The clinical evidence here is stark. A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine and this was a controlled trial, not an observational study, found that a compound in licorice called glycyrrhizinic acid directly inhibits 11-beta-hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase, an enzyme involved in androgen synthesis. The researchers tracked 25 healthy men consuming licorice daily over just 1 week. In 7 days, testosterone levels dropped by an average of 26%. 7 days. I've had patients who were consuming licorice supplements daily for months because they'd read it was good for digestive health. And they came in with testosterone levels that looked like they belonged to a much older man. Here's the truth. For testosterone, licorice is not a harmless herbal remedy. The mechanism is direct and well documented. Number 2 on the list of fruits that destroy testosterone, grapefruit. This one surprises almost everyone. The clinical evidence shows that grapefruit contains compounds called furanocoumarins, specifically bergamottin and 6'7" dihydroxybergamottin. These compounds are potent inhibitors of an enzyme called CYP3A4, which is involved in the metabolism of several androgens. But here's the secondary mechanism that most people miss entirely. Furanocoumarins also appear to upregulate aromatase activity. Aromatase, as I mentioned earlier, is the enzyme that converts your testosterone into estrogen. A 2021 review from the Journal of Steroid Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, analyzing data from 11 studies, including over 8,000 men, found a consistent association between high grapefruit consumption and elevated estrogen to testosterone ratios in men over 50. The clinical reality is that grapefruit, despite its reputation as a health food, creates a biochemical environment in men over 50 that favors estrogen dominance. And if you're on any medication that comes with a warning about grapefruit, statins, blood pressure medications, certain hormone therapies, this is doubly important because the enzyme interference compounds the issue. Number 1 on the list of fruits that destroy testosterone, soy-based fruit products and certain dried fruits with added soy protein. I need to be careful and precise here because soy itself is a separate category, but it's increasingly being added to fruit-based smoothie products, health bars, and dried fruit mixes marketed to men over 50. The clinical problem with soy is well documented. It contains isoflavones, specifically genistein and daidzein, which are phytoestrogens, plant-based compounds that bind to estrogen receptors in the body. A meta-analysis published in Reproductive Toxicology in 2010, reviewing 47 independent studies, found that high isoflavone intake was consistently associated with suppressed testosterone and elevated estrogen in men. The mechanism: isoflavones bind to estrogen receptors, triggering estrogen-like signaling that feeds back negatively on the HPG axis and reduces gonadotropin secretion, the hormonal signal that tells your testes to produce testosterone. If you're buying a fruit-based health product and soy protein isolate is in the ingredient list, set it aside. That product is working against your endocrine system. Now let's talk about what you should be eating, because this is where it gets genuinely good. Number 4 on the list of fruits that supercharge testosterone, pomegranate. The clinical evidence here is some of the most compelling I've reviewed. A randomized controlled trial conducted at Queen Margaret University in Edinburgh tracked 60 men and women over 14 days, and I want to give you the exact finding because it's striking. After 2 weeks of consuming pomegranate juice daily, participants showed an average testosterone increase of 24%. Salivary testosterone, which reflects free testosterone levels, rose by 24% in 14 days. Cortisol levels dropped, mood scores improved, blood pressure decreased. Here's the mechanism. Pomegranate is extraordinarily rich in punicalagins and ellagic acid, both of which are potent aromatase inhibitors. They block the conversion of testosterone to estrogen at the enzymatic level. At the same time, pomegranate's antioxidants reduce oxidative stress in the Leydig cells, the testosterone-producing cells, which makes them more efficient producers. In plain language, pomegranate simultaneously protects your testosterone from being converted away and improves the function of the cells making it. That's a dual mechanism you don't find in many foods. Number 3 on the list of fruits that supercharge testosterone, avocado. Gentlemen, if you've been avoiding avocado because of the fat content, I want to correct that right now. Avocado is rich in monounsaturated fatty acids, and testosterone, like all steroid hormones, is synthesized from cholesterol and fatty acid precursors. Your body cannot make testosterone without adequate dietary fat. A landmark study from the University of Massachusetts, tracking 4,000 men over 7 years, found that men who maintained the highest monounsaturated fat intake had significantly higher free testosterone levels than men in the lowest quartile. The mechanism is direct. Monounsaturated fats are a substrate for steroidogenesis, the biological process that produces testosterone. They also support healthy LDL cholesterol levels, and LDL cholesterol is the primary precursor from which testosterone is synthesized in the Leydig cells. Beyond the fat profile, avocado contains magnesium and zinc, both of which are rate-limiting cofactors in testosterone biosynthesis. If you're deficient in either, your Leydig cells cannot produce testosterone efficiently, regardless of what else you're doing. Avocado delivers both in a bioavailable form. Number 2 on the list of fruits that supercharge testosterone: figs. Fresh figs are one of the most underappreciated foods in men's health. The data on figs is not as voluminous as pomegranate, but what exists is clinically meaningful. Figs contain high concentrations of zinc, magnesium, and potassium, and zinc in particular is a nutrient where deficiency is directly correlated with hypogonadism, the clinical term for testosterone deficiency. A study from Wayne State University tracked 40 men with marginal zinc deficiency over 6 months. After correcting their zinc status through dietary intervention, the men showed an average testosterone increase of 93%. 93%. Now, that study involved men who were specifically deficient, so you shouldn't expect that result universally, but it illustrates the degree to which zinc is a critical limiting factor. Beyond zinc, figs also contain amino acid precursors, particularly amino acids involved in nitric oxide synthesis, which support vascular function and blood flow. The mechanism? Improved testicular blood flow means improved delivery of LH, luteinizing hormone, to the Leydig cells, which is the hormonal signal for testosterone production. Number 1 on the list of fruits that supercharge testosterone: berries. And I want to be specific about which ones. Blueberries, blackberries, and raspberries have the strongest clinical evidence. Here's what's wrong with the common advice to eat more antioxidants. It's accurate, but incomplete. The specific mechanism for testosterone involves a class of compounds in dark berries called resveratrol and pterostilbene. These compounds do 2 things simultaneously. First, they're aromatase inhibitors. Like pomegranate, they block the enzymatic conversion of testosterone to estrogen. Second, and this is the part most men don't hear about, resveratrol has been shown to protect Leydig cell function under conditions of oxidative stress. A 2020 study from the University of Milan followed 88 men over 60 for 16 weeks. The men who received resveratrol supplementation showed a 19% increase in free testosterone and a 26% reduction in estradiol, the primary estrogen marker, compared to placebo. The berry advantage over supplementation is bioavailability. The resveratrol and pterostilbene in whole berries are delivered alongside flavonoids that enhance absorption in ways isolated supplements don't replicate. The clinical evidence suggests 2 to 3 servings of dark berries per week is a meaningful intervention. Not a guarantee, but a measurable one. Here's your evidence-based action plan. First, remove from your regular rotation canned fruit in syrup, licorice-based supplements, grapefruit if you're over 50, and any processed fruit product with soy protein isolate listed in the ingredients. These are not minor adjustments. Each of these has a documented mechanism of testosterone suppression. Second, add to your regular rotation. Pomegranate juice or fresh pomegranate seeds 3 to 4 times per week, supported by the Queen Margaret University RCT. Avocado 4 to 5 times per week as a healthy fat source that directly supports steroidogenesis. Fresh figs 2 to 3 times per week for zinc and magnesium delivery. Dark berries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, 2 to 3 servings per week for aromatase inhibition and Leydig cell protection. Third, pair these dietary changes with a testosterone check. Ask your doctor for a full panel: total testosterone, free testosterone, SHBG, LH, FSH, and estradiol. The full picture tells you where you are and what's actually driving any deficiency. Diet is one variable. The research I've cited shows it's a significant one. Gentlemen, you haven't been failing. You've been working with incomplete information. The advice to eat more fruit is well-intentioned, but it ignores the clinical reality that fruit is not a neutral category when it comes to testosterone. The compounds in food interact with your endocrine system in specific, measurable ways. And when you know what those interactions are, you have real agency over what happens next. The men who came into my office struggling with low energy, reduced libido, and declining performance were not making dramatic lifestyle errors. Most of them were doing what they'd been told was healthy. Now you have the clinical picture. Now you know what the data actually tells us. Tell me one thing you believed about fruit and testosterone that this video changed. I want to see it in the comments, because that's how I know where the misinformation is still spreading, and that's how I know what to address next. I'm Dr. Emily Carter. The clinical evidence is clear. Not all fruit is equal for testosterone. Pomegranate, avocado, figs, and dark berries actively support androgen production, while grapefruit, licorice, and high fructose processed fruit products measurably suppress it. And knowing the difference is one of the simplest, most evidence-backed changes a man over 50 can make. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.